Alright, here we are at the Battle of Lund. This is, as you can see, almost a monster scenario for this system. I'm looking more at the turn record chart than the amount of counters. The amount of counters is fairly large, but not huge. The map is full-sized. This is covering a battle at the end of the 1676 campaign in December. The map's all gray because it's frozen, snowy. All the streams are frozen over. Kind of difficult to comprehend looking at the map, but this is the town of Lund down here. And these are the walled fortifications and the like that are surrounding it. Maybe small farms, I'm not sure. But they're going to provide what looks like the primary terrain feature in this scenario. The other, we get some burial mounds and the like too. The other major feature I would say is probably these slopes, which are steep, which are kind of difficult to cope with. We saw that in the last battle. You can't climb or drop from them without taking a significant penalty, and those have happened in others. So this is actually a really, really interesting battle. Because the Danes were convinced the Swedes had gone into winter quarters, and the Swedes hadn't made it there. So they basically cut across the Danish front line and trying to get someplace where they could winter safely. And the Danes kind of intercepted getting in their way. Huge battle erupts. Swedes are heavily outnumbered, actually. And somewhere in the battle, the two units that are on the board right now, the right cavalry for the Swedes and the left cavalry for the Danes, and there's sort of a rush to get to a good position for the Danes. The Danes want to get to a good defensive position. The Swedes are officially attacking, no matter how you cut it. For them to win this scenario, they have to kill a lot of Danes. So anyway, the Danes kind of blocked the Swedish position, and in the fight, these two wings engaged, and the Danes got the worst of it. Routed off the map. Swedish cav goes chasing after them, and at this point, about this point, the rest of the army down here, which is going to be coming on following both of these in column, was engaging. But a whole wing takes off after another. The King of Sweden, whom we've resurrected for this game, and he's got better stats. You know, he's seen a campaign already. Went along with them. And after a long pursuit, the Danish king also, according to the historians behind this game, apparently there's some dispute on this, thought his army was defeated and fled the field. But his army remained and actually started winning, putting a lot of pressure on the Swedes. At some point or another, a message got to the Swedish king saying, hey, would you mind? And he turns around and comes back. All of this is covered in here. Special rules that allow the Swedes to disengage the king, along with any units that have chased, any cav that have chased Danes off the map, and he can bring them back on the map. This allows sort of a double dipping effect, which reduces, I think, some of the numerical imbalance. But still, they're gone for a minimum of 8 turns from the time that the Swedish king leaves the map. And a lot of damage could be done in that time. The me see if there's anything exciting here. So the victory conditions are really a requirement for the Swedes to do quite well compared to the Danes. They have to break 65-point barrier, whereas if it's anything like a close battle, the Danes are going to win pretty big. Looking at the units, I'm not terribly convinced that this is justifiable. We'll see. Certainly the historical result was quite good. I don't have a lot of confidence in my ability to defeat the Danes with an army that's smaller and a little bit better in terms of morale. But morale isn't that huge a factor I've found in the game. The big factor is usually leaders. And the Swedes are slightly better in the leadership quality. There's no question there. As well as firepower. And the Danish have a lot more embedded artillery in their infantry units, which is going to be a big deal. The Swedes have more cav, though. And cav is just supposed to be more valuable. Now, that's if I can be competent with it. We have to see that. So far, I haven't proven to be very good with it. Anyhow, we're going to get started on this one and see how things go with this gallows. Wow. No effect on play with that. All right. And very briefly, that's the end of the first 8 a.m. turn. View of what's going on, nothing much to talk about, just a big column of Swedes marching down, broken up. This is the infantry back here. Same kind of situation for the Danes. Trying to rush to get to some of the more defensive terrain down there. Hard to tell, though, because you really want to put your cav where there's a lot of walls. Those walls are definitely not city defenses. I looked at the values on them, and they don't block line of sight, and they're pretty weak. So I'm guessing they're just normal kind of farming type walls to divide up the property. All right, well, we'll continue on. All right, end of 2 turns. What do we got? Well, not much. Trailing line coming out. Now the Swedes in the historical center are somewhere down here with their cav wing. Again, it's as though they're making their rolls more than is likely, just like in the other battle. Danes, cav is down there, probably ahead of time. I didn't check where they're supposed to be. But the Danish infantry is kind of moving slowly, as is the Swedish infantry, to tell you the truth. Trying to form up a battle line, it's going to take a while. There's no question there. Now, one thing to keep in mind, see over here I got hedgehog counters. Okay, so I ran out of column. But it's more than that. I not only ran out of all the in-column markers from this game, but also I pulled them all out of Gustav Adolf the Great, which is something not everybody wants to do. Some people, might sell their games or something, and they want to make sure they have the same components that came with it. I think I can tell a slight difference in coloration between the two, but it's really, for me, it's not a big deal. I'm willing to throw counters back and forth from games. I don't remember using certainly not a lot of in-column markers, but I don't think more than like 10 or so. The other side is open order. Anyway, this game definitely seems to need them more, at least this scenario, and I figured I'd pillage them for that. Well, I have to say I'm not thrilled with what I see over here with the Danes, and I'm considering having the Swedes simply move across and try to directly affect the Danish infantry and build their line up over here rather than go down and try to cope with they're not going to be able to form a defensive line down here. Of course, they could trail one down. They haven't decided yet. Okay, so here we are after 3 turns, and we're seeing the beginning of the deployment that we expect a little bit later, or a little bit in a different location than perhaps the real battle was fought, but seeing a Swedish cav setting up here. Opposite it is the center of the Danish line. The Danish left flank cav is collecting up over here and pretty much providing a strong defense the way things sit right now. This wall isn't much of an anchor, but it's the best that can be done at this point. We also have the streams, but they're they have almost no effect whatsoever. Swedish infantry is positioned here, wants to cross the stream and place itself where it can really be defended by the cav. And then the Swedish left flank cav seeing an already deployed Danish right flank cav. I think this bodes really poorly for the Swedes, but I'm just absolutely stunned by the concept that they could win this battle at all, much less to the degree that they're expected to. Alright, I'm going to wrap this one up and send it up because it's about long enough. And I'm not sure whether there's going to be an actual deployment rather than just sporadic clashes happening on different areas. I don't know if we're going to see that stately battlefield that would have been set up had I played the historical scenario. I really like playing something like this, which allows me to maneuver, etc. I just don't feel like there's a tremendous, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to see something like this. I don't understand why setting up your entire formation for battle correctly in this or certain ancient games makes terrible sense. I suspect that more battles were actually somewhat more chaotically formed than a lot of games seem to indicate.